Welcome into the Spread, Nesson's football and sports betting picks podcast. I'm Nesson.com's Mike Cole, joined not once again, as always, by Ricky Doyle, who's on break, but Andre Khatchaturian, of formerly of Nesson.com fame and former co-host of the Spread. Long time no see.
It's been a long time since I've been a part of this show. 2021 Super Bowl episode, the Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl.
Oh my goodness!
That episode of the Spread was the last one I was a part of, and we weren't even here. It was during COVID times. We had to do it on Zoom. Far away from each other. I haven't seen you in 5 years, Mike.
I know this is. There's a whole lot of. And I just brought you in about 4 minutes ago, so we've had the quickest catch up ever. Yeah. We're here to talk about the NFL, the 2024 season preview, part 4. We're calling this the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll get into that a little bit more. I thought with the ugly, it was fitting to bring you back.
Well, that's one thing that's changed in the last 4 years is I used to weigh less than you, and I weigh more than you. And that's what happens when you get married, I guess.
It's a push, yeah. So a lot has changed for you. I'm sure your NFL prognostication analysis is still great. I'm sure you spent all night on yards per play differential last night.
I promised not to bring up yards per play differential today, especially since the season hasn't started. So I'm not going to bring that up today. But yes, in the previous episodes, that was my go-to stat, and but I will not be using that today.
Okay. I meant to go back and look kind of just to see what kind of asinine takes that you might have had in the 2021 season. I'm
excited to hear this.
I didn't get a chance to do it, so okay. You skate on that. I got to imagine it was pretty hot though.
The 2021 season.
You're just takes in general.
I mean, they're not hot takes. I try to do research and based upon stats, I give my takes based upon that.
So you're an
whichever way the stats back up my point, that's the way I go.
You're an analytically driven mind.
I do like analytics, yes.
What do you do for work now?
I am a drone pilot. I do videography and photography. If anybody watching in the Boston area needs some drone photography.
I'm analytical, but for a job, I do art, strictly art. That is the
modern day Da Vinci.
Exactly. You're a Renaissance man.
Renaissance. No, but let's just get to the picks or the good, bad, and ugly.
So we did. You're actually probably the number one fan of this program, so I'm sure you're already caught up with the speed of the fact that we did a quarterback preview or quarterback episode. We did an AFC preview. We did an NFC preview. Ricky says, "I'm going on vacation. Good luck. Figure it out yourself." I am here to try to figure it out. We came up with this. I came up with this. I'm not going to give you too much credit. Like I said, we're going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll get to the ugly when we get there. Like I said, Ricky and I have kind of chopped it up every which way so far, so I'm going to kind of lean on you and just let you kind of throw some of your hot takes at me, and we'll kind of bounce stuff off of each other and go from there.
The good news is I'm just here for one day, so whatever I say, like if it doesn't work out,
no accountability whatsoever.
No accountability. So
Hell yeah.
I might really go off the rails today.
All right, so the idea was, like I said, good, bad, and ugly. So for the first segment, if you want to call it that, the good, let's look at, we're trying to dive into teams that we think may exceed expectations in 2024, whether that's the narratives, what the public thinks, whether that's betting, whatever you want to call it. I posed this to you. You gave me 3 teams. Let's run them down one by one. Who's one team that you think is going to exceed expectations in 2024?
The first one I want to get started on is I think it's going to be my adopted team this year.
Oh, my goodness.
You know how every year I pick a team to root for? I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos.
Who do you root for now? So you're rooting for the Broncos.
This year I'm rooting for the Denver Broncos.
What if the Cowboys are good?
I'll root for the Cowboys.
What if the Rams are good?
The Rams are I'm from Los Angeles, so the Rams will always be there. And the Cowboys, LA didn't have a team. So I cheered for the Cowboys growing up. Those two teams will always have near and dear space in my heart. But this year, I love the Denver Broncos. Their schedule is very forgiving. A lot of people, if I ask you off the top right now, don't look, how many wins did the Denver Broncos have last year?
7.
They had 8 wins.
Okay.
Everyone I asked, they say something lower. They say even lower, like 4 or 5 wins, because everyone remembers the Broncos and how poorly they started and how disastrous it was. They were 1-5. Russell Wilson looked totally inept, but they finished 7-4, and they had a win against the Chiefs. So I think their offense, especially with Sean Payton, offensive mind, kind of clicked together towards the end of the season. And now they have Bo Nix as their starter, and I'm kind of banking on Bo Nix to be a good quarterback. Whatever I'm saying right now is all contingent on Nick's kind of exceeding expectations and being a solid quarterback. We've seen that in the preseason so far, so there's some precedent in that. But I'm looking at their schedule and their season total, which is, it started off at 4.5, and it's since then been pushed to 5.5. So looking at their schedule, which they have a bunch of winnable games: Seattle, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Vegas twice, Carolina, New Orleans. They're basically playing the NFC South, and they get the Raiders twice. So that's a bunch of potential W's. You run into a couple of wins against some good teams like they did last year against the Chiefs, and they can easily surpass that 5.5 total.
Easily, yeah.
Not easily, but I think they will. I think they can get 8 wins again. They won 8 wins 8 times last year with garbage quarterback play, and if they get some competent quarterback play.
Why is the number lower then?
I think it's because of the.
Why is it so much lower? Because like Russell Wilson sucks. So like, I don't know if Bo Nix. I don't know anything about Bo Nix relative to the NFL game. Sure, right. But like, is it that much of a downgrade? I guess probably on the whole, but is it a 3-win downgrade? I don't know.
That's where I agree.
I'm picking up what you're putting down here on this. I think because I don't think that division. I don't know. Like the more I think we were kind of higher on the Chargers, the more I think about the Chargers. It sounds like there's not a lot of great returns on Justin Herbert so far. It doesn't. I agree. The system might not completely fit. I think with the Chargers, you're hoping is like Harbaugh raises the floor compared to the coaches that they've had since they drafted Herbert. But that's no slam dunk. So that division is more gettable than maybe it's been in the past. The Chiefs, I think I would feel better about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl almost than I do them winning the division because it's just get to December or January and then the Raiders suck. So yeah, I think you're I think you might be 1 for 1 here so far.
I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, win the Super Bowl. I just think they can win 7 games. That's all I'm saying.
The question was, who are you higher on than the numbers are saying? And
I answered it.
This is a good start. They are
3 years of rust. Shake it off just like that.
They are 20-1 to win the division. To make the playoffs, they are plus 540. But you said like the 5.5. It's juiced to the over. I think it's like minus 140.
Yeah, but I would be happy to go alter the bet to 6.5 if you can on whatever app you're using and get some plus money, if possible.
That's true. Like, or even for the number itself, like for the 5.5, like 6-11 feels like a bad season, but very doable at the same time.
100%.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like this. What do we think about Sean Payton?
I don't know. I think he's. That's a good. What do you think about Sean Payton?
I asked you to not have to answer.
Obviously, in this modern NFL, you want an offensive coach. And he's an offensive coach with a Super Bowl ring.
How offensive though is he? That's I guess my question. He's a weird one, right? Like, and there have been guys like him who've had success. I think he's like, in more ways than one, diet Andy Reid, right? Like,
yeah,
a guy who was at one point an offensive whiz, but now everybody's kind of caught up and the game has evolved to a certain place. I think Reid's done a really good job to evolve. Peyton, I'm not so sure, but at the same time, is that a player's thing or is that a coach thing? Because he just has not had.
I think. I mean, I don't know if we'll even find out because who's Bo Nix? If he struggles, then they're just going to blame him. Whereas if I don't know, some other quarterback struggles with a defensive head coach. Drake May struggles. They're going to say, oh, well, he has a defensive head coach. And so I don't know what to think of Sean Payton. I think, again, I'm not saying they're going to win the division or make the playoffs. I just think they have enough. They have a lot of weapons, fantasy weapons, like Sutton and Javonte Williams and their other receiver. Why am I forgetting his name right now?
Rod Smith.
No, Mims.
McCaffrey.
Mims.
Oh, okay.
He returns kicks sometimes, but he's going to have a bigger role now, especially that they got rid of Tim Patrick a couple days ago.
Sure.
And the Lions.
Everyone already knows. Yep. Yeah.
Tim Patrick up.
This is Tim Patrick politics. All right, I like that. Give me another one.
I like the Jaguars to exceed expectations this year. Like again, they were 8-3 last year, and then they collapsed.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they're 8-3 for the season. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
They collapsed.
Gotcha. Yep.
8-3. They were first place, and then their season just, someone took the rug under them, and they fell flat on their face, and they missed the play. They finished third place. But I think this helps them with finishing third place because they get a little bit easier schedule. It plays all the third place teams from the other divisions, and you're also playing the AFC South schedule, so I think they're over under. I want to say I wrote it down in my very unorganized notes.
8.5.
8.5. I think they can get 9 wins. I think they can win the division. I think people are way too high on the Texans. I think this is a very good example of a situation where we can get a sophomore slump with Stroud and Jordan Love, which we'll get to later on. But and Trevor Lawrence kind of experienced that too. He had a great year, made the playoffs, took a step back last year. But I think he's older now, mid-20s, maybe even late 20s. And I think you were talking about the off camera.
I love the idea that 1 year. I guess at some point, yes, you do go from your mid to your late 20s, and it only takes 1 year.
Yeah,
we can try to figure out what that 1 year is, but apparently he's past that. He's passed through that Rubicon, huh? He's
27,
25.
Oh, really? Okay, he's mid 20s.
I literally can't get any more middle.
No,
he turns 25 on October 6th. So
you like the Jaguars off-season moves you were talking about.
I do, yeah. I think they did a lot of smart things. I guess they had some major holes, obviously. But I think that they kind of went out and tried to fix what ailed them. I mean, what did they do? They offensive line, I think, was an issue for them. What else did they do? I'm trying to.
They got some defensive players. They got the guy from the Packers, Savage.
Who, whatever. It needed a fresh start. Ezra Cleveland felt like a great move for their offensive line. They got Eric Armstead was up front.
You mean Jacksonville?
What?
Or we're talking about the Jaguars.
They signed or they re-signed Ezra Cleveland. What did I say?
I thought you were talking about the Browns for a second. I apologize.
They got Mitch Morse. This turned in a different direction very quickly. This feels right at home. Gabe Davis as well.
Oh, right. That's a huge one. Yeah.
So nothing jumps off the page there, but I guess to your point, if you're taking a team that was 8-3 at one point, and I was actually looking at it too, what the hell happened to them? Because they were not only were they 8-3.
It started from that Monday night game against the Bengals that went to overtime.
That's exactly what it was.
And
because
then they had another close loss after that, and then I think they just
yeah, it's really impressive. Like their 3 losses in that 8-3 thing. Where they lost to Kansas City, Houston, and San Francisco. No shame in any of those. Nope. And then the wheels kind of fell off. Starting with that Cincinnati.
No shame in Cincinnati. I think again in Jacksonville, I hate doing this in August because who knows what injuries will happen. But Jaguars to end the season, check this out: Titans, Jets, Raiders, Titans, Colts. That's 5 winnable games to close out the season and maybe win the division against some weak division opponents. And who knows what the Jets will be at that point. And the Raiders, I think, might be the worst team.
One could argue that every game is winnable until it's not.
Yeah, but they're going to be favored in all those games.
Gotcha. What's your third team?
The LA Rams.
So this is the Rams were my pick to win the NFC West. My 3-unit play on our NFC preview a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so I like them to win the division as well. I don't know what you got them as, but plus 350 to win the division. That sounds like amazing odds, especially 49ers. I like the 49ers to make the playoffs, be a Super Bowl contender, but
they were my pick to win the NFC despite losing. Not winning the division.
Yeah, okay, we're on the same page. We think alike. I think it's from the when we started the spread in 2015, 2016. We've kind of you have the same foundation of how we look into divisions and games and things.
Sure,
like that. So we have the same opinion a lot.
Yeah. Rubbed off on each other.
Yeah, I think so.
Stockholm syndrome in some regard.
Yes. The Rams, offensive genius, McVay, obviously we know all about their offense and how great it is, but they drafted 5 guys on defense last year. So they really addressed defense. I think there will be a better defensive team, and I think that was kind of their weakness or perceived weakness going into last year. It's like, they're going to have a terrible defense. And their over-under for wins last year was 6.5.
It was low.
And they won 10 games.
They did.
So, Puka. I mean, he's great. So I think he takes the next step.
I don't know.
Puka Nakua.
Say Puka Puka. Puka Puka. No, that is
Pika Pika.
Puka Puka is Crash Bandicoot was a little bit of Crash. Puka Puka.
Oh, yes,
maybe?
Correct.
I think so.
It might have been, but I thought it was the Pikachu, the Pokemon.
That is Pikachu, yeah.
But he says Pika Pika.
Okay, sure. Kind of close to Puka.
Puka Nakua.
Sure, different vowel.
But I think Puka Nakua takes the next step forward, and Cooper Kupp, I mean, he's
the only issue is injuries. And Stafford already dinged up. Like, that's the thing. If
you could say that about any team, though.
Of course. I mean, then what are we doing here?
Exactly.
But Stafford's already, what does he have, a hamstring? Kupp can't stay healthy. Puka, but like, love Kyron Williams.
Oh, my
love,
goodness.
You know, they're going to have somebody I've never heard of have a
Like Skoranek
1,200 yards. Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly.
Skoranek.
Yeah.
There's only 4 active starters to win the Super Bowl. And Stafford's one of them. So, I mean, it's
Among
amazing.
quarterbacks?
Among quarterbacks. 4 active starters.
Holy moly.
Mahomes, Stafford,
Rodgers,
and Russell Wilson, who stinks.
Oh, who he was named the starter today. So
Yes,
there you go.
Right. And Rodgers, he's back coming off of a serious injury. There's also one other starting quarterback to have won the Super Bowl, Joe Flacco. Guess what team he plays for?
The Saints.
No. Guess again.
The Broncos.
The Colts.
I knew it. Yeah.
the Colts
that's right.
back.
Actually, because what's his face went kind of viral. Who was it? Herbstreit who said that he should start instead of Anthony Richardson because Richardson was so bad.
Yeah, he was pretty
in the
bad.
final preseason games. So.
Well, I think we'll see Joe Flacco start meaningful games this year. I think that's going to happen.
So that is a perfect springboard into my good. Better than I think. Well, my good.
Yes, go ahead.
I have the Titans largely for a lot of the reasons that you talked about with the Jaguars, with it just being a piss poor division. The fact that Joe Flacco could be starting games in the year of the Lord 2024 in this division is pretty sick. I don't know if you've looked at their depth chart lately. Offensively, it's super impressive. DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks. Traylon Burks probably kind of stinks, but I'm buying him just to advance my argument here. The quarterback is an issue. Will Levis,
big issue.
I don't know, but I like that they've done as much as they can. They're like the anti-Patriots in some regards, where they're building around him. They used their number was a number 7 pick, I think it was, on J.C. Latham, tackle. They went out and signed it was Lloyd Cushenberry, the center, to boost their offensive line. They hired. Potentially unpopular, or was an unpopular move for a lot of people, basically firing Mike Vrabel, bringing in Brian Callahan, a guy who had a lot of success with that offense in Cincinnati. One thing, he's a big-time offensive-minded coach, so that should help the young quarterback. What I really like is, with the draft, with the free agency, with the offensive line, it was a major issue last year. That's why he looked so bad. Going out and by hiring Brian Callahan, you also get Bill Callahan, who is one of the best offensive line minds in the history
Raiders
of the game.
day,
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
This guy is all he knows is offensive line. Well, that's probably an affront to him. He knows that better than anyone else. So I think there's gonna be modest improvement there. And then you look across that division, and it's just hard to make a case for really anyone and feel good about it. You can make it. That's the thing. You can make a case for all of them, but it's you're not gonna feel great about it.
Listen,
So
I feel like with the Titans, anytime one of these, those shows that are more popular than the spread on FS1 or ESPN.
Geez.
Anytime one of those guys says, "Oh, this team's going to be terrible," I want to go the opposite direction because, come on, how many teams had won 4 games last year? I think it was just the Cardinals and the Patriots, right? And the Panthers. They were pretty bad. Well, only 3 teams, but I think and all those teams had crazy issues. I think the Titans, like you said, so many weapons. Again, what's their over under this year? 4.5, 5.5?
the Titans is 6.5 actually.
Okay,
so
that's tough. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know if they'll win 7 games, but
probably didn't.
But again, the division's really tough. So
Is it tough
not
or is it
tough,
easy?
Opposite of tough. It's really easy. So they can get a lot of
I
run
meant the
into a
exact
bunch of wins.
opposite of what I said. Don't worry about that. Yeah, no, so I don't know. I kind of want them to be good too, just because I think it's an interesting spot. What did you think about the Vrabel thing?
I mean, again, I'm all for in 2024 pivoting towards offense, and especially with a guy like Will Levis, who's kind of a gunslinger, old school quarterback. Like he's going to throw picks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a guy. I'm very sad to say that last year in fantasy, when Will Levis got named the starter and he had that huge debut, right? He had like 4 touchdowns.
I think so, yeah.
And I had C.J. Stroud that week too.
Oh, man.
I ended up dropping C.J. Stroud and picked up Will Levis, and I was 6-0 in fantasy. I lost the last 8 games, and I
think this is probably something you should have holstered there. now I'm sitting here trying to have an educated NFL conversation with the guy who dropped C.J. Stroud for Will Levis.
Stroud wasn't great at the time, though. He was coming off a bad week, and then the following week he had.
What did the yards per play say at the time?
I don't know.
EPA, YPP.
I just bought into Levis. That 4 touchdown game. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is going to be that guy. They have some, but maybe he reverts to that again and with an offensive.
So you think it's good to get rid of Mike Vrabel?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Kind of surprising Mike Vrabel doesn't have a job though.
I mean, I think it's not going to take him too long. I mean, I think more surprising Bill Belichick didn't get a job, but that's a different story.
We'll get to that in a little bit. All right, my other good team, I'll go quick here. I get the Vikings.
Oh, I love this.
So this is more just completely zigging when everyone else is zagging. And I do think, well, now they're looking at it, their win total's high, 7.5.
I think they're going to be really good this year.
So I think they go in.
You have your old friend, Aaron Jones.
Maybe my own narrative is wrong, where I think that they're kind of being forgotten about, but the numbers would say otherwise. There is, it's plus money to the over. It's plus 134.
Okay.
I think that division, the more I think about it, is going to be a dogfight.
Yep.
I probably poo-pooed them in the NFC preview, and now I'm thinking twice about it because I do wonder. I love this comp. I saw this in the Star Tribune when I was reading my newspapers. Somebody asked basically, can Sam Darnold be this year's Baker Mayfield?
Right.
And I was like, I love that comp because there's just Sam Darnold, you look through his entire career outside of just the 49ers stint as a backup. It's like, it's been crap, whether it's New York, whether it's Carolina. Now it's like they have a very, very good offensive line, which has been a major issue everywhere he's been. They have Justin Jefferson, who completely changes the game plan every week. They go out and get Aaron Jones, who I think, maybe 2 years from now is out of the league, but I think for at least one more year, I think he's got something in it, especially if he wants to prove it.
Madison too, right?
Yeah, so they've got guys there. Kevin O'Connell's play calling I just think the floor gets raised there, and maybe JJ McCarthy would have been a rookie of the year guy, but I also think they would have been decent with either one of them, I just don't think there's a huge drop off even if he's gone.
The best part is now if Darnold throws a couple picks in the first few weeks, they're not going to say bring in JJ.
Yeah.
They can't do that anymore. They have to go with this guy, and I think he's more comfortable being the starter. Remember Geno Smith a few years ago? He stunk his whole career until he came.
Yeah, it's another good one.
New environment and went to the playoffs. And when I look at the 7 teams that made the NFC playoffs last year, every year there's like 3 or 4 of them that don't make the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay takes a step back and Minnesota sneaks in, especially like you said, that's going to be a tough division. Mm-hmm. They're all going to be beating each other up. I think Chicago is going to be a solid team. And Minnesota, and you forgot about Hawkinson too. He's coming back week 5.
Yeah, good point.
TJ Hawkinson is going to be a solid option for them.
Their defense is also really good. Flores runs that defense. Yeah. Not a great head coach. I think he's a fantastic coordinator. They went and got Stephon Gilmore as well to add to that. They've got some really good, really, really strong defensive playmakers. I just think if the Lions, Packers, and or Bears fail to live up to the hype that is with all 3 of those teams, I can just see right now, 1:00 start, games in Minneapolis,
tough place,
and they just run one of these teams out of the building and I think they can rack up a handful of those wins over the course of the year. 10-7 probably wins this division. But everybody else is going to be either 9-8 or 8-9. So.
I think that week 1 game, Vikings-Giants, I think they're only a 1-point favorite.
Let's jump on that.
That's something I would love to jump on. But yeah, I totally agree with you. And
I kind of posed the question: is there betting? It doesn't sound like there's a ton of betting value. Maybe I overplayed the JJ McCarthy hype, but I just think again, they're situationally sound, not in terms of first and second down, but just. The structure there feels pretty good.
Which organization? I mean, in that division, do you trust? I trust the Packers the most. Obviously, they're always good, but I think the next bet is the Vikings. I think I
was gonna say the Packers are literally in a 30-year run of contending for the playoffs every year, so they're one. But then probably the Vikings.
Vikings. Bears stink all the time.
Bears are a joke.
Finally just
and the Lions are getting way too much credit for what they've done in a short period of time.
I think they'll be the NFC champions this year, but
let's sustain it for a while. Yeah,
they've done something for 1 year. Let's not compare them to the other juggernauts of the NFC North.
Let's not. Let's downshift to bad. Okay. Let's go to the bad. The teams that we think are gonna fail to live up to lofty or potentially not very lofty expectations. And I think this is a perfect kind of segue.
To what I was going to talk about the Packers.
One of your teams is an NFC North team, the Packers. Yeah.
I love everything about the Packers development. I think Jordan Love's a real deal. I don't think he's, I don't think last year was a fluke. I think they will, in the long run, be more like the team we saw in the second half and that team that ran the Cowboys out of Texas. Mm-hmm. And they basically conquered Texas Stadium.
They did.
And
again.
That was one of the most embarrassing losses in Cowboys history. And But was it that embarrassing? I mean, we're going to look at Jordan Love as a legend one day, but I think they take a step back this year. I think, again, the sophomore slump, whatever, is a real thing. We saw it with Trevor Lawrence. There's going to be more film on Jordan Love. And I don't know if their wide receiving core, I don't think that's the real deal. Watson, Dobbs, and Reed. I mean, I think they're all solid guys, but they're a bunch of number 2s and number 3s. They don't have a number 1. I think the other teams in the NFC North, all of the other teams in the NFC North have a number 1 ace wide receiver with St. Brown in Detroit, and then Jefferson, and then the Bears got Odunze and DJ Moore. So
Keenan Allen too.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's skeleton, but and you look like I love the Josh Jacobs pickup. I think they'll be good, but I just think, again, 7 NFC every year. There's 7 teams that don't make the playoffs that had made the playoffs in the previous year. So some teams have to not make the playoffs. You can't just pick the same 14 teams to make it.
That's a fair point.
And I when I look at the NFC, if you're going to pick 3 to 4 teams to not make it last year, I think Tampa Bay is an easy one. Yeah. I think maybe Atlanta takes that next step. And then I think the Philadelphia with Nick Sirianni collapsing, you might talk a little bit about that. I think that's another easy one. And I'm going to have to go with Green Bay after, because I think San Francisco is going to be a Super Bowl contender.
I think it's almost certainly going to be like the Packers.
Detroit, I think, is a Super Bowl contender. Rams, I think,
or the
get
Rams.
better.
It's like the Packers and Rams are the team that.
Some people say the Cowboys because of their horrible offseason. But let me say one thing about the Cowboys.
Of course.
They are, like PNC Bank, brilliantly boring.
I don't know if you could say that, but okay.
Because, yes, they're always in the headlines and everything. So that when people think of that, they're like, not boring.
Who's boring?
The Cowboys. They're always in headlines, but the way they play, they have a very boring brand of football.
All right.
They beat on the bad teams, they lose to the good teams, and they get 10, 11 wins, 12 wins by beating the bad teams, and then they crap the bed in the playoffs. Brilliantly boring. You know what you're going to get the last 3 years with the Cowboys, and I don't think that's going to change much. They have the same quarterback. They have CeeDee Lamb, who's getting better. Their tight ends are decent, and their defense is going to be amazing. Mike Zimmer's not a clown. He's been good wherever he's ever been. And I think they're still going to be an excellent defensive team. They'll beat up on the crappy teams, and they'll somehow find a way to win the East again.
All right. I did not expect to take this in the Cowboys direction, but
But it's related, because if you're going to pick one team to not make the playoffs from the NFC or a few teams, I think the Packers are one of them.
All right, let's go to the AFC. What's your other team?
Bills. I think the Bills make the playoffs, but I don't think they win the division.
Okay. Division's tough.
Division's tough. I'm all in on Aaron Rodgers this year. I think it's gonna.
All right.
I think I can't stand him, but I bought his book. I read a little bit of his biography.
Ian O'Connor one.
Yeah, really.
Is it any good?
Well. Yeah,
you got time to read now?
I read the first 3 chapters. His great grandfather was a war veteran. Really cool stuff.
Great move by O'Connor putting that in there and getting on Rodgers' good side. I heard Rodgers talking about that a couple weeks ago on the radio. It's it was a great first chapter. It's like, homeboy, you better stop after there. Put that thing away.
Well, you kind of root for Aaron Rodgers in the Brett Favre chapters too, because Brett Favre was kind of mean to him. Yeah. Well, but look, he is who he is. I think he's.
What does that have to do with the Bills?
Because I think they're going to win the division, and the Bills are going to take a step back.
Okay.
Bills have the first place schedule.
Yeah.
They lost Stephon Diggs. They still have a defensive coach, right? They didn't get rid of their coach.
No, McDermott's still the coach.
He's still there. He's getting his. In
fact, if anybody takes over, it could be Belichick. So they're going to go defense. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, it's somebody has to take a step back.
Yeah.
But I think it's Buffalo.
Yeah, I just think I'm with you. I'm down on Buffalo because I just don't know what they do really well. Like, what do they do better than anyone else?
He might have the best quarterback in the league, but
I guess, but he's kind of a knucklehead at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's
more
hurt
talented.
anytime.
Maybe he might be more talented. Like, if we're playing flag football, he's up there in terms of the guys I want to take.
So do you think in 2028 he should start over Mahomes in the Olympics?
Oh my God, that's a whole. I saw a headline in the Athletic the other day talking about like what I thought it was like the Onion first. I was like, what kind of lessons can they learn from like the U.S. women's basketball team with the Caitlin Clark thing when they apply it to the flag football at 28? It's like you'll be there, right? You're going home for that. I'm guessing
that would be amazing.
You'll probably be like lighting the torch or something the way that your career is ascending.
Do something with the Armenians there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Tough Olympics for us. Couldn't get a gold. But
I know. I read all about it in the Armenian Times.
Yeah,
or
it was.
wherever
It's
you're
tough.
penning your
We
byline.
got 3 silvers and a bronze. We were really hoping for a gold. But
What is the sport of choice for Armenia?
we're good at wrestling. We're
Oh,
good
right,
at
of course.
weightlifting,
Yes.
and we had a gymnast who won a silver. That was a new thing in the vault when they
That
run.
is, that's why I like the Armenians. They're very gritty. Those are gritty sports.
As what's his face?
It's like very strong
Who's Aaron
handshakes.
Rodgers' podcast friend? The bald guy who does UFC as well. I forget.
Dana White?
Not
Pat McAfee?
Rogan.
Joe
As
Rogan?
Joe
Oh, right,
Rogan
yeah.
once said about Armenians, they're refreshingly masculine.
That's a take. Yeah.
So
Feel good to be back in Watertown, by the way.
Yeah,
The head-
I mean,
yeah.
I went to Jersey Mike's. I didn't go to the Armenian delis. And
Oh
stuff,
my
but,
God.
But I'm still around here a lot. We got the Armenian Media Center down the street.
course.
I do some work there as well.
They're all, I
freelance
drive by the
stuff.
church every day. It's good to.
Say a prayer.
I got a neighbor down the road from me that has an Armenian flag out. So
Yeah, I mean, we're very proud of our where we come from.
I love that. Very, like I said, strong handshakes.
I'll shake your hand.
It's just all right. My bad. I got the Eagles. We kind of hit on this already last year.
Sirianni's a
That
clown,
story
huh?
was explosive, I guess, in terms of like him and Jalen Hurts not getting along. Basically, it seemed borderline dysfunctional to like a unhealthy degree, where it's like I think there was some healthiness to the dysfunctionality that the Patriots had, but like. That was Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. It wasn't Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Two guys who are, I think, better than most at what they do, but still not the best at what they do. So they bring in Vic Fangio. They bring in Kellen Moore.
How many
Does
jobs
that-
does Vic Fangio
I know.
think he still have?
I know. I was like, I had to double check that the other day because I was like, the Dolphins? Oh, no, he's gone from the Dolphins. That was a
Losing Shane
disaster.
Steichen, I think, hurts a lot.
That's a very good point.
That's another team to look out for, the Colts. But
Colts.
we can't just say all these teams are going to be dark horses.
No,
I mean,
I'm trying to give you
someone's
the
gotta
opposite of
lose.
a dark horse.
Yeah, yeah.
The Eagles are the anti-horse.
Yeah.
The Colts are a horse, and they are dark. Quite literally. So no, and like Fangio
bird.
and Moore, like that feels. Maybe it works. I haven't really followed it too closely, but that feels like the kind of moves that you make in a video game where you're just like, you sort by, rating, and it's like, oh, Kellen Moore, this is a guy who's got a 92 rating as a coordinator. Vic Fangio, 96 rating with an elite reputation. Wow, let's just give these guys whatever they want inside. Like, life isn't that simple. And it just feels like Sirianni, can he take a back seat to that sort of stuff? I'm not entirely sure. And so now you lose Jason Kelsey as well. Like, does that affect anything up front? I don't know. Like, continuity is a big issue with that sort of thing, especially with how, like, I don't think they're going to fail to pick up the tush push or anything like that. But I think there's, big picture, week to
That'll be
week
a
type
story,
of things.
though, if
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
And,
I'm not ready to.
I can totally see Saquon Barkley getting hurt in like week 6.
Sure, that's the thing. Like, I do think they have a very high ceiling if everything goes right.
Yeah.
But Saquon has his history. Hurts is, you're always kind of reluctant with a guy like that who runs as much as he does to feel good about the health. The division feels tough, and I just think if they stumble out of the gates, when they get their ass whooped in week 1 by the Packers, and like they have to come home from Brazil and things haven't changed, and if they look up and they're 1-3, and maybe the Cowboy, like, does it turn into this pissing match where one of these teams is racing to grab Belichick off the street? Do they just make that, they smash glass in case of emergency real soon? I just think it just has a chance to. Maybe I'm spooked by one piece of journalism, but there's just so much in there where it's like, I can't feel good about bringing back the two primary characters of this and being like, yeah, this is going to work.
Yeah, and so it seems like you're down on the Cowboys too. Do you have Washington winning the East this year?
No, I think it's a tough one.
Well,
I guess
I like
would,
Washington
I would
to
go
make the playoffs.
I would go to the Cowboys, I guess.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's more likely to go. I just respect McCarthy too much.
He's very underrated. I'm very happy with
Keep it on the rails type of guy.
If they just change their quarterback, but they're not going to.
Jesus, they're gonna give him $80 million a year. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's terrible. But I think the Brock Purdy that formula is the way to go in all these teams. Just
Fair.
don't pay your quarterbacks, stack up the roster, and unless you have Patrick Mahomes, I guess.
All right. Well, speaking of a team that did both of those things, I got my other bad or whatever down. Ugly. No, this is bad. We're still in bad. I got one more. I got the Dolphins.
Oh,
the
yes.
Dolphins. They paid their quarterback and they have guys around him. I went back and looked at their schedule last year. I'll run through this as quickly as I can. The wins that they had last year: Chargers, Patriots, Broncos, Giants, Panthers, Patriots, Raiders, Jets, Commandos, Jets, Cowboys. Combined 52 games under 500 those teams were. That includes that Cowboys team that went 13-4 or whatever. So I don't know. There's some fool's gold there. The schedule's going to be tougher. I think we're probably both. I'm certainly higher on the Jets this year than I was last year. The Bills I don't love, but I do think that they are a tough team. You know, they match up pretty well with anybody. I just wonder how deep they are. You know, they put a lot of onus in these high price top end guys. They lost Christian Wilkins, speaking of a high price guy, but it's like they got Tua had a great season last year. I don't know if we can bank on him being healthy for another 17-game season. So there's that. We saw Tyreek Hill get injured last year. Jalen Waddle's got issues. Achan got hurt last year too. Like
they have some amazing weapons, though.
They do, but it's just I'm not the first person to use this analogy, but they are like, I know nothing about very fast, very expensive cars, but it feels like those are very easy to break.
Yep.
And when it does break, it throws everything out of whack. And I think that's kind of what the Dolphins are. So I don't know. I guess that brings me to the Jets as the team to win that division, which I don't love. But
I don't love it either, but I mean, it's your old guy, Aaron Rodgers. You know, he's got a year and a half of rest.
Yep.
And ayahuasca and darkness retreats, and
doesn't have to worry about being on the campaign trail. RFK's dropped out. That was one thing that has gone underreported here is the RFK Jr. with dropping out, that effect that it has on the NFL season in 2024. So that is. But
they have weapons.
They do.
Garrett Wilson.
They do. Yeah.
Breece Hall. Their defense was really good last year too. I think.
They're going to get Devontae Adams at some point, probably.
That would be amazing.
That would be cool. All right, let's get to the ugly before we get out of here. The ugly, 2024, the Patriots.
11.
You see what we did there? The ugly, they're bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a Patriots bet that you want to make for this season?
I mentioned it earlier. As every time the public's like, "Oh, this team's going to be terrible, terrible, terrible." Here's what I can remember last year. Last year at this time, the Houston Texans were plus 20,000, 200 to 1 shots to win the Super Bowl. And they were the second worst odds, and they ended up making the playoffs with a rookie quarterback and a defensive coach.
Yep.
And you know, I will gladly take the Patriots over. Especially, we just talked about how dysfunctional the AFC East is. Again, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to win the division or the Super Bowl. I think they can win 6-7 games. I saw Drake May play in the preseason. I saw everything I needed to see. The guy can move. The guy can throw. He's going to be fine.
Did you see the offensive line?
He'll run around it and make some 15-yard rushes.
That's when they get the playoff. When they don't
have
make.
Ramondre Stevenson, he's like one of the top fantasy backs. I would take him in fantasy. And their defense, they will be good. So
I want to get in your fantasy league.
Anytime. We have one more spot, I think.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. You're going to have Mike White at quarterback and Ramondre Stevenson is your bell cow. Okay.
No, he's not going to be the bell cow, but he's a solid RB2 for your team.
Okay.
You don't think so?
I didn't know this was going to be fantasy. I'm sure he could be a flex.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very bad at fantasy football, too.
I think the Patriots will run into 6-7 wins. They're the Patriots. They're going to be good again.
That means nothing. They sucked forever until they got Brady
but they're
and Belichick.
over under 4.5.
So what does the Patriots mean? What does that even mean?
It means the NFL wants to be the NFL wants them to be good again.
What did they think in 1992?
Well, that was they
did the NFL take a couple years off after Super Bowl 20?
Oh my goodness, you're misreading everything I'm saying right now. All I said was that they're just going to be. You said they're going to be the worst team in NFL history, or insinuated it, right? You said they're going to have
gotta have a take. Yeah, okay. I guess I don't know.
And a lot of people are saying that. I was watching the local radio show, and they a lot of callers are calling in and thinking it's going to be a 2-win, 3-win season. The same way everyone was saying the Red Sox are going to be terrible this year. They're in the wild card race right now. I think every time people are negative, especially in this city, just go the other way, because they're most of the time they're overreacting.
Hey, I appreciate that you had a take. Obviously, you didn't watch last week's episode of the spread because we went over the Patriots, and I actually did ask Ricky. I said, "Hey, what do you think about the Texans comparison?" Okay, and we both were like, we both kind of laughed it off. My play last week, I'm rehashing my picks from last week, so I guess I would use this as my Patriots bet. I have them as the last remaining winless team.
Okay, yeah,
5-1.
That's
and
fine. I think they're going to be bad early.
But here's the thing: you just cited schedule. They have an astonishingly tough schedule for a team that was so bad last year. I think Sharp Football has them as the worst or the second hardest schedule. I ran this by Ricky last week. They start at Cincy, home Seattle, at the Jets on a Thursday, at San Francisco, home Dolphins, home Texans, Jacksonville and London, and then 2 road games. So, like, it's, I don't know. I just don't think there's not enough talent on either side of the ball, and I think their offensive line is a unmitigated disaster. Right before we came in here, the waiver claims came out. They picked up 4 guys, including 2 offensive linemen who are probably going to start right away. That gives you a sad. They couldn't. Did you watch the game on Sunday?
I watched parts of the Washington game.
They literally could not line up on side. Like I think it was the core 4 kept lining up. I know, like, the preseason, it's a point of emphasis. Probably won't get called as much. I question the coaching. I question the talent. What do you think about Drake May? Do you want to start him right away?
Well, beef brisket Brissett is playing, right?
I don't know. Like,
He's
by the time
probably
this comes
starter.
out, they might have an answer. I think Mayo's going to announce it on Thursday.
I think they'll
but
be
would
terrible.
you start? Would you start May?
Do you think? Hold on. Yes, why not? Go start him. Everyone's starting rookies nowadays. Do you think they can go 2-8 in the first 10 games?
Yeah.
Okay, and then 2-8. May's got some games under his belt. What the Patriots probably want is their last 7 games to go 500, right?
Sure.
To have some
Yeah.
momentum going into next season. Because they can go 2-8 to start the season,
Don't let him get hot.
and then just get 500, 4-3 the last 7. That's a 6-win team. That's all I'm saying they're going to be, and they will have momentum going into next season. And then next year, people will be talking about them, and they were the hot team to end the season. This is similar to the Lions a couple years ago. Remember, they missed the playoffs. They beat the Packers to knock them out of the playoffs. The Lions still didn't make the playoffs, but everyone talked about how great the Lions finished the 2022 season, and then in 2023 they did what they did.
Now I'm curious about that Lions team. Do you know? All right. So do you think Dan Campbell's a better coach or worse coach than Gerard Mayo?
That's a coin flip.
Do you think Ben Johnson is a better offensive coordinator than Alex Van Pelt? Do you think
I don't know
Aaron Glenn
anything
is a better defensive coordinator than Andre? Who's the Patriots defensive coordinator? It's like, that is not a good thing to be
His
like.
name is Andre. Then I go with him.
DeMarcus Covington.
I think as far as I'm just betting on May to develop as the year goes on. That's all I'm
What
saying.
else is on that team? Jared Goff or Drake May?
Jared Goff, of course.
Amon-Ra St. Brown or...
Demario Douglas.
So, like, that's my thing, though, right? There's just not a ton of talent.
Yeah, you're right.
You go back and look at that team, it's like, oh, at least these guys had talent. What do you think of Gerard Mayo?
As a coach,
As a head coach in the NFL. The
I don't
National
like the
Football
whole nepotism aspect of it. Like, by nepotism, I mean he was already in the system. They didn't bring in anyone new. Again, not an offensive guy, but they like him within, and they feel comfortable with him. And I'm sure he has comfort being in that building. And maybe there's something to that.
I think
intangibles.
I think he could get better. I think he's in way over his head right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just think.
But
It's like the speaking out of both sides of his mouth of the quarterback thing is a perfect example of
Yeah.
it. So
Absolutely. But, I mean, last year was a disaster, too, and you had the best coach of all time.
yeah, that's fair. Where to that point, where do you think Bill Belichick ends up? Do you think he coaches in 2024?
I don't know, man. He's enjoying retired life, right? Like, he's on TV, he's in Nantucket, he's on a boat. He's
Got a 24-year-old
24-year-old
girlfriend
girlfriend.
making media appearance after media appearance.
Yeah, I think he's trying to... I don't know. Maybe all these media appearances are like the roast and everything. He came off as very lovable there. Maybe he's trying to show people that he's not so rigid as people think he is, so he can line up for another job. But
Do you think a 70-year-old man can change that after 50 years in
no,
professional
I
football?
don't think so. I think you are what you are after like age 30, probably, right? And he's 70, so he's more than twice 30.
Sure.
It's okay to be retired. Let him what does he have to prove?
Yeah, you're more or less retired at this point. So.
I'm not retired. Trust me.
We gotta get out of here pretty quick. Do you want to give your media company one plug real quick?
Yeah, if you ever need a Kamek Media for all your drone needs.
Of course.
I don't have a slogan.
No, you might want to work on that. You talk about, what'd you say about being 30?
You don't change it. I feel like the older people get, the more they are in their ways. So after age 30, you're basically, you become more and more rigid after that.
How old are you?
I'm 34 now.
So you were after 30, so you're stuck, right?
Basically.
That's okay. I like you. You're my friend. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. This is great.
Is that good Armenian handshake? Thank you for coming in, Andre. That's Andre Khatchaturian, former Nesson producer, former co-host of The Spread. We'll be back next week. Ricky should be back, assuming,
Yes.
I don't know, maybe who knows? Do you know where
he's
he
in
is?
Croatia.
I think he said he was maybe going, but then wasn't going. I don't know.
I think it changed.
Oh, now he is going.
No, I think he said he was going, and then now he's saying he's not going.
That's what I thought. too.
Croatia, home of Bill Belichick.
Maybe he's trying to uncover some stuff for next
Covering
week.
some ancestors.
But so next week, football season starts, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. We have a Thursday night game. It's the Chiefs-Ravens. Friday night game, Packers-Eagles, and then a full Sunday slate. What's the Monday night game? Do you know?
I don't remember.
It's the Jets-49ers.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
That's going to be very
great.
exciting.
So, yeah, it's good to be back.
Hopefully Aaron Rodgers just...
We'll be back on our regular rhythm next week. But, Andre, thank you for joining us.
I'm more than happy to join if any of you have an ailment.
Hey, I think you did a great job. I think you'll be running this place before too long. Just droning around. And
I like a flight around it. I don't want to run it.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll be back next week. Until then, thanks for
studio.
Thanks
You
for
guys
watching.
did a great job.
Thanks. No, it's all right. There's nothing to say. We're going to go now. Goodbye.